Okay, so you've probably heard that you should be increasing your protein intake, but are you doing it the right way? If you have a weight loss goal but aren't seeing progress, or your progress has stalled, maybe sugar cravings are really bothering you, or maybe you are consistently bloated with increase in protein. What's the deal with that? No worries, I got you covered. Hey there, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. This is your host of the Pre-Diet Podcast, Allie Virtue, also functional medicine nutritionist and owner of Parkside Nutrition. Today, we are talking about common mistakes that people make when it comes to trying to increase their protein. I see this happen all the time. People are making genuinely really good changes, really good efforts to increase their protein for weight loss, for muscle building, for just better health, to reduce sugar cravings, and sometimes they get really stuck and they're not seeing progress. What's the deal with that? Let's talk about it. But first, make sure that you are following the Pre-Diet Podcast. Subscribe to the Free Shit Friday email list at parksidenutrition.com/subscribe to get instant access to all the exclusive resources in the subscriber only library, including a list of recommended protein sources that I'll talk about at the end of this podcast. So stay tuned. On today's episode, I am breaking down the benefits of eating more protein and the common mistakes I see people making all the time when they try to up their protein intake for weight loss, muscle growth, gut health, longevity. We're talking about it all. And spoiler alert, it's not about eating more chicken boobs, broccoli, and rice. So let's get into it. Yes, I said chicken boobs. I don't like chicken breasts. I think they're the driest things ever. I know restaurants and other people can do it really well. I just can't for some reason. Not a chicken boob fan. Love the thighs. So first of all, why is eating more protein a smart move? So let's dive into the science just a little bit of science, big impact here. So it's a metabolic boost. And by that, I mean protein has a higher thermic effect. So your body burns more calories digesting it. Not in a bad way necessarily, but we don't get all of the, say, 100 calories from a protein source. We don't consume all those. So we lose a little bit. There's a little bit of a net effect there. So we really want to make sure that we are optimizing that part of our metabolism by having a good amount of protein in our meals on a regular basis. Satiety. So satiety is how full you feel or content you are with your food intake. So this helps control your appetite, reduce cravings, especially late night sugar cravings. Those happen, I know, but this really helps with that. Increasing your protein really, really helps with that. Muscle maintenance. So this is crucial for building and preserving lean mass. So even if you have a good amount of muscle mass on you and you want to lose some weight, having a higher enough protein intake is really helpful for preserving that lean mass because quite often when we do lose weight, we lose a little bit of muscle, but we want to preserve as much as we possibly can, and weightlifting and protein intake are the things that drive that the most. Plus, this is a big, big factor when it comes to aging in a healthy way and longevity. Typically, as we get older, we see a lot more muscle loss. And this increases our risk for falls, frailty, insulin resistance. Insulin is the hormone responsible for helping us balance our blood sugar, and muscles, having a good amount of muscles on our frame, are very helpful for balancing our blood sugar and making our body very receptive to insulin when it's secreted. So very, very good thing for metabolic and long-term health. Neurotransmitters and mood. Protein gives you the amino acids, and the amino acids are like the building blocks to protein for brain chemistry. Hello, serotonin. So this is really helpful for mental health, mood stability, things like that. And lastly, gut health. Protein helps maintain the gut lining, supports immune function, and regulates digestion, but only if it's the right kind and paired with fiber. We'll get into that more later. All right, so here are some common mistakes people make when they are trying to increase their protein. And I got a big one at the end, and it's a very simple rule to follow that's really going to make a lot of impact in your nutrition journey. Number one is not eating enough. You probably saw that one coming. Some people will say, oh, I had a high protein lunch, I had a turkey sandwich. And they have like one slice, maybe two slices of turkey. Well, most deli slices are actually about 1 ounce exactly, unless you get the really small, thin ones, and that makes it really easy to measure. So as a minimum, I'd love to see like 3, 4, 5, 6 slices, and that's for females. Average size females, that is a fairly reasonable amount. Males, more than that, obviously. For weight loss or body composition, most people need about 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal as kind of a minimum. I know that sounds like a lot, but that's a good minimum. And if you're not seeing the progress you want, or if you're finding it really hard to get enough protein, you might be relying on the wrong sources. And I call those sources typically protein sprinkles. So this is like bacon, nuts, seeds, beans, lentils, things like that. And while they do give you protein, I feel like they are an additive effect, not necessarily the best main sources for that. Protein sprinkles are great, but they're sprinkles, they're not the main part. You need a significant source of protein at every meal. I definitely recommend tracking your food so you can see how much protein you actually need to consume to get closer to those protein goals. Ignoring protein quality. So not all protein is created equal, like I kind of alluded to with the whole bacon sprinkles. So when we talk scientifically about protein, we're talking about complete proteins and incomplete proteins. So a complete protein is a protein source that contains all essential amino acids that your body can't make on its own. That's why they're called essential, because the body can't make them. There are a few that are conditionally essential. So under times of stress or pregnancy or illness, the body might need those in more amounts. It can't produce those in enough amounts for those particular situations. But we won't get too much into that. But there are complete proteins and there are incomplete proteins. And the incomplete proteins are sources that can't deliver all nine of those essential amino acids. So we want to pair those with other proteins so we can create a complete protein. So what are complete proteins? What are some examples? Well, the animal-based ones are going to be pretty complete. There aren't really, barring one, any incomplete animal protein sources. So complete sources of animal proteins, animal-based ones, are eggs, poultry, chicken, turkey, beef, pork, seafood, fish, salmon, cod, shrimp, tuna, dairy products like milk, yogurt, cheese, cottage cheese, whey or casein protein powders. All of those are fantastic and complete proteins that give your body all the building blocks from proteins that it needs. Some plant-based ones are going to be soy products, so tofu, tempeh, edamame, soy milk. Those are all going to be complete protein sources. Quinoa, buckwheat, hemp seeds, chia seeds. Chia seeds is a little bit of a controversial one, but we get it in small amounts, so not a main source, but helpful. Some other grains, spirulina is, but spirulina is usually in such a small serving that it's not a huge protein source, maybe kind of in the classification of protein sprinkles. And then some incomplete protein sources. So collagen peptides is getting a lot of rave reviews recently, and I do use it. I do recommend it. It's not technically a complete protein. It's missing one of the nine essential amino acids, but I think this is still helpful. Is it the absolute best for muscle protein synthesis? No, but it's still helpful. It still increases people's protein, still helps with satiety. So I'm still a fan of this. But, if you're looking for optimal bodybuilding results, whey protein is going to be a better option. But I still like collagen. We just gotta know its place. Other incomplete protein sources are going to be things like lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans, peas, peanuts, rice, oats, wheat, corn, barley, bulgur, almonds, walnuts, cashews, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, broccoli, spinach, etc., potatoes, Brussels sprouts, those things. They have some protein, but some. They're not usually a significant source unless we pair them in a really intelligent way. I'm going to tell you what that is. So they become complete proteins when you combine them with other things. So this is where if you are plant-based, it's really, really helpful to work with a professional to make sure that you're getting a wide variety. And the Chronometer app does a good job of this as far as telling you if you're getting a good profile of the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, all of the different types of amino acids. So it really helps summarize that or give your coach a good summary of that so you don't have to think about it. But it tells me a lot of information so I can say, hey, let's eat more of this, that, and the other because I see XYZ is low. You don't need to get in the details of it, but I have a really good amount of information to work with. So how do we pair proteins or incomplete proteins to make a complete protein? So incomplete protein could be beans, lentils, but a complementary source could be beans and lentils plus rice and quinoa. So pairing a lentil or a bean with a type of grain. Peanut butter and whole grain toast would also be another good one. Hummus, aka chickpeas, and whole grain pita bread or whole grain toast. Tofu and tempeh plus rice or stir-fried veggies with sesame seeds. Or oats and chia seeds or hemp seeds, those kind of combinations. So crossing those food groups is a way to kind of make a more complete picture and give your body a more complete source of protein. And this also reiterates the point, even if we are having animal-based protein sources and we're getting mostly complete protein sources in our meals, it's still a great reminder to add variety. So poultry has a different amino acid profile compared to beef. Yes, it's both complete, but some are going to be higher in certain ones and lower in other ones. So this is just a really good point to drive home of variety is great. Incorporate them all. Obviously, you don't like them or they don't work well for you digestion-wise. adjust as needed. But poultry, beef, I really like to include beef on a 1 to 3 times a week basis. It gets a bad rap, but I think especially for women of reproductive age, it is just so helpful to have those red meat sources so we can replenish our iron stores. But if you are worried about that, 150 grams, which is about one serving-ish, it's going to be about 5 ounces or so. Don't quote me on that. But 5 ounces a week is also fine as far as what the research has found to be like the threshold of like no risk. Under that, you are absolutely fine. But most people, if their diet is overall really good, I don't really worry too much about the total amount of red meat. If we're still consuming an adequate amount of fiber, adequate amount of vegetables, we're exercising, getting the sleep, that whole picture is very, very important versus one factor. Fish, I would recommend like 3 times a week, especially if you don't want to take a fish oil supplement or don't have the budget for that. Incorporating fish 3 times a week, I think, is also a fantastic idea. Tofu, tempeh, lentils, Greek yogurt, collagen, mix it up. Those are just some great sources to start with. The next mistake I see is focusing only on protein shakes and bars. Are they very convenient? Yes, absolutely. Do I need to have them every single day or do they need to be my staples? No, I would rather see that we're using mostly whole foods, or that's the first priority. And then if we need to incorporate those things, great. That's totally fine. They're very helpful supplements, but they are supplements. And some of them contain a lot of gums, sweeteners, fake fibers. And I'm not here to like nitpick ingredients. If you're sensitive to a food, if you have a ready-made protein shake and you don't feel good afterwards, don't have it. Try another brand. It really depends on the person. Some people are very, very sensitive to those small ingredients. Some people are not. Protein powder is a supplement. It's not a food group, so let's use it strategically as needed. It's very helpful when actively trying to add weight or add calories to your day. If you're just struggling to get enough food in, it's a great way to do that. Or if you're actively trying to build a lot of muscle, that is a great way to do it. Sometimes I don't think they're very helpful. Sometimes, don't hate me for this. But sometimes they're not as helpful for weight loss because people will quite often, they start exercising, they think, I exercise now, I lift weights, I need a protein shake. Not a bad idea. You probably do need to increase your protein to help with recovery. But sometimes this pushes our calories up and then people don't see weight loss. So just keep that in mind. Again, this is a plug to track your food and just work with a professional to kind of see where you're at and they can make better recommendations. But keep that in mind, that ideally we are increasing it with food sources first and the right ones. We'll get to that in a second. The next mistake is skipping fiber and plants. It's not all about the protein and it's balance, people. So high protein plus low fiber is a great way to get constipated. Bloating, crankiness. You need to have good balance. The constipation usually comes because our fiber is really what we don't digest and what pushes our food mass through our system. So if we don't have that bulk, a lot of protein is absorbed. So there's not a lot of residue left, which is quite often when people do like the carnivore diet or a very, very high protein, very, very low fiber, aka low residue diet. They don't poop as much because your body absorbed a lot of it. So we do need fiber so we can push that waste through. Also, fiber helps to balance our blood sugar and keep us full and all those wonderful things too. So balance is good. So for our gut and blood sugar, you need veggies, ground flax seeds, chia seeds, avocados, lentils. Those things are great to add some fiber in. And again, be nice to your gut, help it move on a regular basis. So think protein and plants first. Protein and plants. People are like, what kind of meals do you recommend? I want protein and plants. Is that dissing carbs? Is that advertisement for no carb diet? No, definitely not. But these are the priorities that people forget about or they don't have in enough volume in high enough amounts. So protein and plants first. Those are the power combo. The rest of it will come. Carbs work their way in there. Fats work their way in there. But these are the big movers and shakers that are going to get you better nutrition results. Next one, forgetting the muscle side of the equation. You can't just eat protein and hope that you get toned. You have got to tell your body what to do with that protein. Protein needs a stimulus. Resistance training to build or maintain lean tissue is so, so important. So this is especially important for women over 35. We usually hit our peak as far as like muscle building capacity before that time. It's not a rule. It's not that you can't gain muscle. You absolutely can. We have to work a little bit harder as we get older to put on muscle mass. So why not do it now? The next mistake I see is not distributing protein throughout the day. If you're the person that skips breakfast and then tries to cram your macros at lunch and dinner, that's going to add up to a lot of protein. 60 grams of protein at one meal might sound like, oh yeah, great, I just have a really big steak, but it's going to be really filling. And I would rather not do that. I would not rather not cram. And it doesn't work for most people in reality. It will likely be too much food. It'll feel too filling, could cause some fatigue because you just had a big meal, can lead to bloating. It's a lot to digest all in one time. So aim to divide your total protein goal by the number of meals you are comfortable having, aka preparing as well. And for the average woman, that's going to be about 30 to 50 grams of protein in 3 meals a day. Starting with breakfast. Snacks can be about 15 grams of protein. That's a good guideline for snacks. Males obviously need more than this, as they're typically larger and have a greater proportion of muscle mass on their frame. But if you want to do the math, about 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight is a good estimate for how much protein you should consume in one day. So, for example, myself being about 135, 140-pound woman, 112 and 140 grams of protein per day, that in consuming that amount over 3 meals is going to give me 37 to 47 grams of protein per meal is what I should be aiming for. And again, if this feels like too much, I can stop eating. I can mindfully eat my food and so I don't feel overly full. But if we are trying to lose weight, build muscle, that's a good range to aim for. So mistake number 7, forgetting hydration. Protein metabolism creates a lot of nitrogen, and that is excreted via your kidneys. So your kidneys need water to help you flush that out. So if you're upping your protein intake, also up your water intake. Half your body weight in ounces is a good general recommendation. And again, don't forget fiber as well. Increase our water, increase our fiber, go really well together. And a last little note here, high protein intake does not cause kidney disease. If you already have kidney disease, then you might want to consult a renal dietitian about lowering your protein amount to prevent further progression of that diseased state. All right, so now we're going to talk about how to get it right. So these are going to be simple upgrades that go a really long way when it comes to increasing your protein intake in the best possible way. So the first thing is add a protein base to every single meal. Hopefully that's the first thing when you are thinking or planning your meals. Where's my protein source? Am I going to have chicken, Greek yogurt, tofu, eggs, lentils plus rice? What am I going to have? Then layer in some fiber. Add some roasted vegetables, some leafy greens, some fiber-rich plants like chia seeds, flax seeds, berries, beans, something like that. And then if you need to, add protein in the form of a supplement form. Protein powder in smoothies with, again, some fiber or just water or an alternative milk. Those can be helpful supplements, helpful snacks, but I do want to focus on the meals first. Prep ahead of time if you have to. Cook double batches of protein, keep the eggs as a snack or hard-boiled eggs as a snack. Make sure you just have extra made. And then I already mentioned it a couple times, but track in the Chronometer app, chronometer.com or the Chronometer app. There's a great free version. And I think you'll be really surprised at how much protein you eat or don't eat. This is an incredible tool that will help you learn what portions you need, how much protein you're consuming, and what's going to work best for you. And when you're tracking your macros in Chronometer, you learn that some proteins come with a lot more fat than others. So this is really, really critical to learn. And it's not necessarily that those high fat proteins are bad per se, but in a world where it is really, really easy to overconsume on food, it's really good to be aware and learn the balance. It's really good to be aware and learn how to balance your plates effectively so you can still enjoy foods in good portions that help you feel really good and help you maintain a healthy body composition. So if you follow me for any amount of time on social media, you will have seen that I make fun of Jimmy Dean sausage or breakfast products, food products a lot. And most of the time, actually, I shouldn't really pinpoint them. Most breakfast sausage options are not a very good exchange. They tend to be very high in fat to the amount of protein that it gives you. And I'm going to bring up a couple examples here. The first one I pulled up is spicy chicken honey biscuit. Hey, I have a high protein breakfast. It has 13 grams of protein. Well, if I look at this, it has 13 grams of protein and 13 grams of fat and 35 grams of carbs, 310 calories. It's not really a great exchange. And especially if I'm trying to get to that 30 grams of protein as a minimum, that's having 3 of these. And that's going to be 900 calories for breakfast. Not really a great exchange, right? It's not very lean source. It comes with a lot of extra calories. So probably not the best option. They also have others that are like 19 grams of protein. And it's not high enough for the amount of calories that come with it. Even if they do have a leaner one, turkey sausage one, egg white and cheese. So there's some leaner sources. This one has, it's the Jimmy Dean Delights. So the English muffin, whole grain, turkey sausage, egg white and cheese kind of breakfast sandwich, and 18 grams of protein, so a little bit more, and 270 calories per sandwich. So this sounds like a great deal, but honestly, this could be applicable if you are really wanting a small breakfast, if you're really not a breakfast person. But To be honest, 270 calories for breakfast is not usually enough. And I guess you could have two of these, but again, then you're still not getting a ton of fiber. And we can honestly just do a lot better if we have a homemade meal. So I'm not a huge fan of these. Another one that I wanted to bring up because breakfast sausage is such an easy option for a quick high protein or higher protein option is Adele's chicken and apple sausages. So I love these. They taste great. But if we look at them within the scope of one serving, on their nutrition label is one sausage, which most people probably have two or three or four potentially in a serving. So let's just look if we compare a bunch of protein sources. So we'll say everything is a 5 ounce serving, 5 ounces of these Adele sausages. That's about one and a half, little over one and a half of these sausages. It gives you 23 grams of protein, and overall calories is 300 calories. 22 grams of fat for that serving for one and a half of those sausages. So, in comparison, if we were to have 5 ounces of chicken thighs, we could get 39 grams of protein. So, almost double the amount of protein, and it's less calories 244 or 45 calories, 9 grams of fat. So, that's a huge savings right there. If we were to compare to 5 ounces of ground beef, 85% lean. So, not the leanest you can buy, but decent. So, 5 ounces of ground beef gives you 37 grams of protein. 20 grams of fat, kind of similar, but 340 calories. So kind of similar to that, but we get way more protein. And then let's look at salmon. So a fish, it's not the leanest of the fish, but it's still pretty good. So 5 ounces of salmon is 36 grams of protein, 12 grams of fat, 258 calories. So again, lower calories, almost double the amount of protein and almost half the fat. And then the last example, just to highlight one of the leaner protein sources you can consume is shrimp. Shrimp is pretty much pure protein. So 5 ounces of shrimp is 34 grams of protein, 140 calories. So half the calories, same amount, almost 10 grams of protein more if we were to compare it to those breakfast sausages. So hopefully you're sticking with me as you're listening to a lot of these examples. Obviously, I'm looking at my screen and I can see the numbers, but the point is you can just get so much more food. And in a world where I would rather have avocado or salad dressing or nuts and seeds or some of those other foods that add volume, they add other nutrition, they add fiber to my meal. I would rather have those things added than fat, a lot of excess fat that doesn't really serve a lot of nutrition purposes on my plate. So this is all preference. And obviously this is, again, not to say you can't ever have these, but learning that a serving size is actually probably one sausage. And then maybe I have a half, or maybe I can also include a leaner source. So maybe some like eggs and egg white scramble alongside that sausage. So I kind of make a complementary plate, but I'm not looking to these high fat protein sources to be my main source of protein for the meal, because that quite often will drive our calories up. And it's just a fact of the world where it's really easy to consume on these foods, and especially these packaged foods versus some other options that we can kind of put together for ourselves. So this is my big recommendation. When you are looking at food labels, when you are looking at your food in Chronometer, my recommendation is aim to get 2 grams of protein for every 1 gram of fat per serving. So for example, that Adele sausage you get, for one serving, which is one sausage link, you get 14 grams of protein and 13 grams of fat. So it's kind of a 1-to-1 ratio. Ideally, it is double the amount of protein for the grams of fat that it gives you. Shrimp obviously hits that. Chicken usually hits that as well. And again, this is just so you can learn how to incorporate those leaner protein sources more often. If we can have these as a part of our just regular baseline default menu or meal plan, this is really going to help us maintain a healthy body composition really easily. If this is just this is just the normal amount of food that we incorporate. It's not to say that when you go out to eat and you want to order a higher fat protein, we can't do that. But that's like on the occasion versus our bread, excuse the pun, but the bread and butter are regular things that we consume on a regular basis. Just actively practice having those leaner proteins as a part of your regular meals can go a really long way into maintaining a healthy body weight for a really long time. As a thank you for listening all the way to the end of this podcast, again, go subscribe to the parksidenutrition.com/subscribe exclusive subscriber email list, and you'll get instant access to that library. And in that library, you'll get a lean protein guide. This will be a 2-page list of the most common protein sources from the leanest to the highest fat with a cutoff of that ratio. So we want to stay above the blue line and get 2 grams of protein for every gram of fat per serving. And it also includes my recommendations for breakfast sausage, ready-made sausage. There's some that are already cooked, you just heat up. There are some that are raw and ground that you can add to your breakfast, but they actually fit that criteria and help you increase your protein without adding excess calories. So I highly recommend go checking that out. Make sure you share this podcast with someone who is also trying to improve their health. And I would appreciate it so, so much if you could follow the podcast, leave a comment, leave a review. That is so helpful for growing the show. And I hope you have learned something today. But thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.